Good morning, and welcome to Lake Country UU Church on this fine winter morning. So few brave souls out there. My name is John Kuhn, and I'm a longtime member of this community and your worship leader today. Today we celebrate the beginning of one of the many holidays of light, and in the newsletter we invited you to bring some reverence items for the Advent display, as Gina mentioned. We will use those during the story this morning. As you recall, Unitarian and Universalism have Protestant roots, and Advent is a part of that. Before Christianity, there was a festival prior to winter solstice that was a lot like the counting down the weeks until the darkest day that looked a lot like Advent. We have many who celebrate Yule and solstice, and we are honoring all the roots of those with our Advent scene we are building today. We hope to inspire you to celebrate Advent as you count down, treasure, and celebrate the season. Whether you're a longtime member or a first-time visitor, you're welcome here. Regardless of the wide array of individual and group differences that we bring, we are united by our common humanity and our desire that all may flourish and be loved. Unitarian Universalist congregations covenant with one another to affirm and promote specific principles based on shared values. We live out these values within a living tradition of wisdom and spirituality that is drawn from sources as diverse as science, poetry, scripture, and personal experience. Our first reading today is titled "The Persistent Flame" by Amy Brooks. As the days grow shorter and our homes shrink smaller and our wicks burn lower and our will to endure flickers, we lit our chalice to kindle a flame of warmth as a reminder of the connection that draws us in to a community that opens us up in gratitude for the breath in our lungs and the love in our hearts, for the gift of this day alive.
That song's written by the Banksons. If you're not familiar with them, they're some of Reverend Matt and mine's favorite music. They have amazing videos. And they introduced us to this idea of echolation, the echo of coming again. Because Advent is more than chocolate calendars. It takes us to ancient ways of waiting for the sun or a child bringing us sunshine. It predates Christian Advent, and like many of our UU traditions, we can honor the meaning of these traditions created to celebrate and deepen our experience of light. And so I invite you today to take up Advent again and enjoy the magic of the season. Now, I love Advent calendars. I used to collect different ones. People would bring me little Advent figures or little calendars. I like unusual ones, and I really like ones that are aimed at revealing art or good wishes. And this year I bought our family a Metropolitan Museum of Art one, where we get a puzzle that's based on one of their best art pieces from the Art Museum in New York, right? And we get 25 puzzles of the major artworks to count down. I'm pretty excited about it. And to my surprise, Reverend Matt and Aiden were really excited about it too. So that was pretty cool. Now, back in the day, my Advent calendars, when I was a child, only revealed a rather crummy picture that wasn't even printed that well. And I loved it. I loved the act of opening that window each day and just the whole excitement of that. And at the end, the picture was bigger. That was all you got. There were none of these candles that some people get a day, or jam, or chocolates. I didn't have any of that stuff. No calendars dispensing cat toys and wine and cheese or dog biscuits, right? Advent has gone the way of many commercial takeovers like Elf on the Shelf. And we might wonder, what do those have to do with Advent? And I think about it as a countdown. And our Christian nor our pagan roots of Advent have much to do with cat toys, I'm sorry to tell you, or cheese or chocolate. And while these calendars are fun, and I'm aware that some folks in this room probably didn't even come today, not because of the snow, but they might have debated coming to this service thinking I was going to have you count down to the day an immigrant family wandered a wealthy country with a virgin mother-to-be, hugely pregnant, with a famous child, and that she was in labor on a donkey. I don't know about you, but I'm watching a whole lot of immigrant families wander this wealthy country and not being welcomed. And so I'm holding that in my heart this Advent. And today I'm also calling to our ancestors, our religious ancestors, so distant we may not have even thought of them. I want them to help me in my heart prepare, and I invite you to call on them as well. They will not be found in green leaf hints on the Ancestry app. They are not found in animated nor stop-action holiday classic television specials. These ancestors that we're calling forth, they want us to celebrate these candles as we count down to something special. And they go in that purple, purple, pink, purple weeks. When I was a kid, it meant a countdown to presents, and that was good enough for me. And when I jettisoned myself from Catholicism, I never thought I'd go back to wanting an Advent or Advent candles. But now that I have reframed these holidays into a spiritual Advent, I consider the hope in the seed of my soul. Who were those people more than 5,000 years ago that hungered for light? They wanted hope, and for them, the sun represented hope. They watched for children to be born and to live long enough to be their next hope. They probably imagined a land that was endless, fertile, and perhaps everlasting. In their time of darkness, they reflected, they wondered, they hoped. Our meditative videos today ask you to think back to those times, to have a hope so powerful it can squelch fear. So as we go through this sermon, think to yourself, what is my fear that I'm holding, and what hope could squelch that fear? Perhaps these pagan roots speak to your heart. Perhaps they hearken back to a time when your ancestors waited for the sun, waited for a child, and built scenes with stones and shells and tiny crystals and treasures and bones. They brought greenery to make it look better. Maybe they carved little figures of animals, or even built altars to that sun child, that earth mother, that goddess that they hoped to nurture them. Later, the story morphed. Maybe the Christian meaning of Advent harkens, something you want to lift up with new meaning. Imagine yourself 2,000 years ago living in a time when terrorizing men ruled as kings and called themselves gods. Maybe it doesn't seem so hard to imagine today. How much hope would you have in that position? How much hope do you have now if you hear a leader that is rooted in love? A leader who wanted to condemn oppressive laws and create a society where neighborly practices of generosity, kindness, and interconnection were lifted up to the hope we all need. Don't we need it? Yeah, I need it. And I don't think we need to be looking for one perfect leader. I think we can lift up the good of many of us, of many leaders. We have this habit of taking our ministers, our mothers, our fathers, our politicians, and going, well, but they do that wrong, and they do that wrong, and we condemn them. And you know what? I think we need all the hope we can get. Sometimes it comes in crazy social media messages that you go Earl, right? Sometimes it comes in a kindness from a neighbor. Sometimes it comes from lighting these candles here. We need that interconnection. And so now I am inviting you to reclaim Advent, both the pagan earth-centered ancestors' ways of doing it 200 generations ago. You come from them. And also our Christian ancestors about 42 generations ago. For many of us, we're living in a time of darkness. We know our planet's resources are not everlasting, and many of us see the limits of capitalism. We even wonder if democracy will be cast out in this darkness, or can it come back to light? We are in a time of wondering when it and what a giant it is will be over. Or when will it come? Or when will it happen? Many of us are waiting for someone, something to save us. Your it might be full of worry or hope or perhaps fear too. And there is nothing that does not benefit from calm spiritual practices. That's why we're going to actually engage in a very interactive practice this whole Advent. And you could do the small version of this on your kitchen table, on your desk, somewhere in your home. You could add a stone. You could light a candle each day when you have a meal or your cup of coffee. I wonder if you could look at this darkest time of year and prepare your own heart. Because then you will be ready for all of the it's to come. Whatever your it is, whatever you're waiting or hoping or wishing. Preparations help to calm us. Just like those calendars might help kids prepare for Santa to arrive, so does cleaning the house and decorating and cooking and making lists and preparing. Spiritual practices are practices that we do every day. It's not once a week. It's something we do daily to prepare our heart. Some of you meditate. Some of you pray. Some of you go on walks. There's so many things you could do. I'm inviting you for Advent to have a special spiritual practice that connects you to the seasons, to the earth, as well as hope, joy, peace, and love that these candles symbolize. Let Advent invite you to prepare a new place in your mind and your heart. The video we shared from the Bengtons is about echolating hope. That primordial tone of the song makes it feel connected to the beginning of time. I encourage you to play it loudly in your home or your car. The Hebrew and Christian scriptures share these lessons in story. Advent could be a time to meditate each day, to challenge yourself to learn a new anti-racism word or a tool or make a gift. I encourage you to come up with a whole list of things you can count down to in Advent. Not because you're waiting for God to appear, maybe you are, or Christmas to come, but because you're preparing your heart anew for how you want to be in the world. You don't have to accept that this is how I am. You are the only one that has the power to change you. Do you want to be less anxious or more calm? The first light of Advent is the light of stones, stones that live in crystals, seashells, and bones. This week you could add stones and shells to your display on your dining room table. And this Advent calendar, the first week, stands for hope. The Israelites hoped that the Messiah would come. They'd been waiting for this Messiah for centuries, right? Wondering what he would look like, and they were sure it was a he. In my chaplaincy last week, someone told me that they envisioned Jesus as a black woman, and I said, yes, right? We can invent what that hope is for us. This is the week of hope in Advent. And many felt that when Jesus was born, that was the hope that they were looking for, and it was finally fulfilled. Other people are still waiting for it, right? But every day there are babies born all over. You had one born in your congregation just last week. I wonder if some of these babies being born have answers our world needs to give us hope. The second light of Advent, next week, is the light of plants. Plants that reach up to the sun in breezes that dance. So next week you'll add some greenery to your Advent scene. Bring little bits of greenery. Perhaps in your Advent scene in your home, you'll put a little picture of a green tree, or you'll add a plant to your little display, or you'll just spot trees out in nature when you go for your walk. Maybe you'll add a little piece of green fabric to a home altar. The second light of Advent is sometimes called the Bethlehem candle, and that's why it is also what color? Purple, yes. You're going to be so good at this, right? And that represents peace. And one of the prophecies about Jesus is they called him the Prince of Peace. And when the angels appeared to the shepherds, they ended their message saying, "Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace who his favor rests." Now, I don't think Jesus would have thought of it that way. Jesus wanted you to create love in your hearts. And what can we do to have moments of peace in this season? You can give yourself that peace. Your meditation could be 60 seconds. Remember, some of you, I preached on pathetic spiritual practices, right? 60 seconds a day could be your time of peace. It could be for meditation. It could be to write a daily gratitude. Maybe your practice this Advent will be putting a gratitude in a jar. The third light of Advent is the light of beasts. We wait for the birth from greatest to least. It's a time in that third week where I am thankful for my pets who help me get through tough days. Or perhaps it's a time I am thankful for farmers of dairy and meat. Or perhaps it's a time to have a vegetarian day each week. When I put that part of the Advent scene together, I put on little sculptures of animals. I've sometimes felted them. Often at church, I see a lot of little Lego and Playmobil ones come in that week. You bring your little animals that third week because that's the shepherd's candle. And that section of the story is very much about joy. And the shepherds are mentioned in Luke chapter 2. They were watching the sheep, right? Probably some goats in their pastures. And then this amazing angel appears. And some say that candle is pink because back in the old days, popes, because there were a bunch of them, would give out a pink rose. Maybe you'll have roses you give out, because remember, they lived in a warm climate in the desert, right? It's a joyful time. People fasted and identified ways they'd caused harm to one another or been unlike that loving Jesus. That week, you can consider ways maybe you haven't been as kind or as loving as you might hope for yourself. How can you get to your best self? And then the fourth light of Advent is the light of humankind. That's the hope that we have to learn to love and understand. The light of hope is a prayer that we may learn to love deeper and understand more fully. That candle for that week is what color? Purple. Fourth week is the angel's candle. It stands for love. And angels appeared in the story even before Jesus was born. The Gospel of Luke describes how this angel Gabriel appeared to a man named Zacharias, informing him that he and his wife would soon have a son. They were pretty surprised because they were pretty old. And many churches only read chapter 2 of Luke during the holidays. But chapter 1 is where we get the story of the Magnificat. It's an exciting story of these two good friends, these two Marys, these women from different tribes. They were different ages. One was young and one was quite mature. Right? And they were so excited, they both ran to tell each other that they were pregnant. They were each having babies, and they were happy about it. They were a little afraid of the angel that showed up to let them know, but, they rolled with it, right? Our angels might come in the form of pregnancy tests now, or it might come in the form of someone sharing some good news with you, right? But they knew they were going to have special babies. And I don't know about you, but every time I visit Christmas Eve and I hear those cries, I'm so happy that that hope is being born in our churches. Whenever I hear of an adoption or a birth or a great group of kids, I think about that hope the angel brought to the women in the Magnificat. And that son Zacharias had, he grew up to be John the Baptist. And he preached that the Messiah was coming, and he baptized Jesus in the River Jordan. Now I look around the world with my own fears about wars, genocide, and corrupt leaders. And I pray. You know, a prayer is the truest voice of your soul. That's what a prayer is. And I pray hard that our youth, along with our marginalized beloveds, will build new ways that I cannot even fathom. And I really want to support those dreams. Our world is complex, and there is no one it. There is no one solution. There is no one perfect leader or one perfect idea. That is ridiculous. The ways forward come from many ideas, many ways forward. We are all needed to be part of that it. Every one of us. You may feel love through this community or for those in other circles. And if you don't, I urge you to feel it now. Let Advent be a reminder to strive for love. I put symbols of love into my Advent altar in our dining room. Sometimes I add little hearts or photos, and here at LCUUC, Reverend Matt has promised he's going to have you continue building this altar during Advent. So please bring those little treasures each week mentioned in the e-news. And don't forget to bring a sun mother, and it doesn't have to be just one, because we need many ideas, many goddesses, many mothers of the next Jesus, right? The next person to remind us to be in love. We can all be blessed by angels, and we can be angels in our world. There are so many ways to bring hope and joy to others. I'm going to tell you a little story about Reverend Matt and I. Now, I had started doing this, and then he moved from the great land of Seattle, Washington. And first, he was just going to take a little sabbatical in West Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And then he decided to stay. And I looked around neighborhoods, and I saw other neighborhoods that were really festive with lights, really preparing for the holidays. And my block did not have that many lights. It had some, but not very many. Mine was pretty dark. And I would decorate my house, but not elaborately, honestly, because I'm pretty cheap. But some showed spirit, and I tried to show up with that. But one year, I saw a few more houses were decorated, and I thought, this is really nice. I wonder if we could encourage this. And so I went to the store, and I purchased poinsettias at Aldi, right? They weren't very much money. They were like $5 a piece. And I wrote up cards, and I talked with Reverend Matt and Aiden. And I can't remember, was Cece there? First year? No? Yeah. So we made up awards. And then we walked around the block, and we gave one house the most colorful award. And another one got the award for the brightest. And we awarded another one for the people with the most blow-up figures in their front yard, right? And we passed out the awards, and we thanked them for their holiday spirit. We gave them a poinsettia. And the award was, a greeting card that we wrote out. That was it. Well, guess what? The next year, there were a lot more lights, right? And we knew more people's names on the block. It was pretty cool. And we did this year after year. It's our fun little tradition, and we've made more friends. And so it was just a simple way to add more cheer. Maybe it made a difference, maybe it didn't, but almost every house puts out lights now. We light the fourth candle right before Christmas Eve this year. That's often when the nativity would bring in the baby Jesus, or we could bring in a son child, symbolizing the birth of new ideas. In what way has a child blessed you? Whether it's something you read, or whether it's an idea you took on, or an experience you had, you can add that symbol to your home wreath or display or bring it here. This year, more than ever, we need things to look forward to, don't we? Yeah, right? Even if it's just making it through the holiday season, because the holiday is not happy for everyone, and that's why I'm inviting you to have an Advent where you can hold your fear and think of what hope might be for you. So it is our counting down that helps us hold that intention. So I gave all of you a candle for the service today. If you don't have one, raise your hand and our ushers will get you one. And I'll ask for the lights to go down, because Advent is a time to come. It's an important arrival. So I'm going to urge each of you to have an Advent in your spirit for joy and for peace. And we're going to turn down all the lights. We'll just let these candles be there for us. And Tracy's got some music that's going to come, and I want you to think about what is your it that you're waiting for. With all these meditations and musics and readings and the sermon, what is bubbling up as fear in you that you want to overcome? When you know what it is, light your candle. What is your it? Here in this congregation, you are just as much of a holiday miracle as the turning of the earth, as the persistence and dedication to a faith, as the creation of each new life. We see the love you give to others and the space you create to hold one another's joys and sorrows, and the generosity of spirit you entrust to this community. You are the holiday miracle. This community is one of miracle makers. Amen and blessed be. Go forth looking for good, look for light, and create an Advent for yourself. Remember, winter is dark, literally and figuratively, and yet each tiny spark brightens the way to Christmas Day. Shine, little light, and show us the way to the bright light of Christmas Day.